Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you're listening. Welcome to Way Outta Here, the Philly sports podcast with fan perspective from way outside the greater Philadelphia area. My name is Steve Prudente, here with you as always to take you on the journey for the next half hour or so. Happy 2026 to you. This is my first podcast of the new year. I'd like to wish you all a belated happy holiday of your choice. Christmas, Hana, Kwanzaa, Honda Days, Toyotathon, Lexus December to Remember, Shorberfest, whatever else you got out there. Hope you all had a safe and healthy holiday season, whatever you chose to do and celebrate with, and it's good to be back with you guys in 2026. I will remind you to subscribe to me on the social media platform of your choice on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Way Outta Here Podcast, on Blue Sky, Way Outta Here Pod, on the blog, WayOuttaHerePodcast.blogspot.com, and if you've got any feedback, you can send me an email to WayOuttaHerePodcast@gmail.com. This is available wherever you get your podcast. On Apple and Spotify, a rating would be awesome. On Apple, a review would be even better. Thank you so much in advance. I will begin as I always do by introing the beer of the show. Today's selection I chose is from Rising River Brewing and it is called Rise of the Marzen. I will have more on that at the end of the show. Okay, let's get back into it. Before I get to the topic of the show today, or the primary topic of the show, which is the good, the bad, and the Eagles, you can probably guess what we'll be talking about there. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a holiday recap of sorts of what I've been up to. I took a few weeks off here towards the end of the year there. This was my first holiday season as a married man, which you might not think changes all that much. It really didn't from my end, but I was surprised at how many people congratulated us. Hey, how's it feel to have your first holiday season as a married man? Really didn't feel all that much different to me, other than having that little piece of extra jewelry on, I suppose. But a lot of people noticed those sorts of things and congratulated us once again. I thank you all for that. It is a great feeling, of course, to have that as part of my life. And I also want to thank all of you who took time out of your day to wish me a happy birthday. My birthday is on December 30th, so it's right in between Christmas and New Year's. You'd be surprised. A lot of people actually, you would think would forget or gloss over it, but I am always so happy and pleasantly surprised, I should say, by the outpouring of support I receive from all of you out there in my life. Thank you so much, and I look forward to having another great year, another trip around the sun. I guess I'm kind of fortunate that New Year's comes right around the birthday, get to do that reflection, that annual reflection only once a year, and I'm looking forward to another good year here. I did have some plans to go see the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, as I mentioned maybe before on this podcast. They ended up getting canceled because the weather was such that the Charlotte Checkers could not get into town on the day that the game was scheduled. We ended up cutting our family trip a little bit short as a result of that. They rescheduled it for a couple days later. Most of my family was still able to attend, and apparently they saw a really good game because I saw that it went to overtime, a comeback on the Phantoms' end, and they ended up picking up the win. So good on the result. A little bit sad that I didn't get to see it in person, but I'm always happy that my team did well. And maybe next year when I try to plan this, I won't try to plan so far in advance because, as you all are probably aware if you live in the Northeast, weather is very hit or miss at this time of year. So, any rate, that was good. I'm looking forward to another great year in 2026 and in my 42nd trip around the sun. And thank you guys again, and thank you in the future. And with that, I will get into the topic of the show, which I chose as the good, the bad, and the Eagles. Kind of an up and down feeling we've had with this team through most of this season. They're a very good team, but I wanted to go through kind of some of the ups and downs a little bit more depth here as we're getting to the end of the NFL season. The playoffs are right around the corner. We'll get into all that. So 2 games ago now, against the Washington Commanders, the Eagles clinched the division, the NFC East, for the second time in a row, which is the first time that has happened in the NFC East since the Eagles did it under Andy Reid from 2001 through 2004 when they won 4 consecutive division titles. As much as I kind of enjoyed that the NFC East had become this meme over the last 20 plus years and not having a repeat division winner, it was pretty obvious this year that if the Eagles weren't going to be the one to do it based on the outside competition, you could have made a reasonable argument that the Commanders had a claim to it because they did make the NFC title game last year. A lot of people said that success wasn't going to be replicated, that they might take a step back, and as we see, injuries kind of push that thing into that, and push that momentum into that manifesting itself. The Cowboys, well, we've discussed on this podcast and many other places as well what a train wreck of an organization they are. Even though they are labeling themselves as contenders, nobody within the knowledgeable sphere of the NFL really takes that seriously. And then there are the Giants, who fired their coach midway through the season. They look to have a quarterback, but they're just not a complete team, not even close yet. So the Eagles really had the opportunity to be the first team to do it in 20 plus years, as I mentioned, and if not this year, then maybe it would never happen again. That's never is a strong word, but you did get that feeling. So the Eagles did take advantage of that. There have been some downtimes throughout this season, but more good than bad, as I've kind of been toting out that line a lot lately on this podcast with regard to the Philly sports teams. And it begs the question to me, is this the best era of Eagles football ever? I would make the case that it is. Now, I lived through the 90s. Part of the 80s, I was a little bit too young to really remember the Buddy Ryan era, those dominant defenses that ultimately came up short in the playoffs because they didn't have any semblance of an offensive output, or injuries to starting quarterback Randall Cunningham, and so on and so forth. Then there was the Rich Kotite and the Ray Rhodes era, which few bright spots in there, here and there, but much more bad than good, as opposed to good than bad. Usher in the Andy Reid era, which through the greater part of my 20s and 30s was the greatest era of Eagles football, because we had seen, as I just mentioned earlier, repeat division titles for 4 years in a row, 4 NFC championship game appearances in a row, only one win to show for it, but still the first time the Eagles had made a Super Bowl in my lifetime, losing to the Patriots, of course. They did get back to another NFC title game in the Andy Reid era, so 5 NFC championship game appearances, but again, only one win to show for it, and sadly, that was the greatest era of Eagles football I had ever seen. I've seen some of the historians like Reuben Frank and others out there saying that the Eagles teams in the 40s that won back-to-back titles with shutout victories has not been done since, would be up there among the greatest teams. I still have to deal in the reality that those teams just seem mythical to me. I know that they existed, but this feels more real to me. And the Andy Reid era was, until the Nick Sirianni era, the greatest era of Eagles football that we'd seen. Now I would argue we're currently living it. And so take a deep breath, enjoy, take a look around, embrace this for all it is. As I've been saying many, many times before, and will continue to say on this podcast, you cannot take this for granted. Nick Sirianni, for all of his faults, and there are some, has guided this team to 5 consecutive playoff appearances in his first 5 years as a coach, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and of course that one major win last year. You could even expand this a little bit further and go to the Doug Peterson era, where we've had 8 playoff appearances in 10 seasons, 3 Super Bowl appearances, and 2 wins. I mean, that's really, really good, consistent football that we're talking about on the level of some of these teams that have gone down as the greatest in history. I'm not saying we're there yet, but we're there as far as the greatest era of Eagles football we've ever seen. Not your father's Philadelphia Eagles, if I could put some sort of cliche phrase on it. With that being said, the current iteration of this team, they are a good team. I don't want to discount that. Bad teams do not win 11 games in the NFL. But the Eagles have done that. Despite all of the ups and downs of the season, they will be resting most of their starters in Week 18 due to what the seeding map looks like in the NFC playoff picture. When they announced the schedule back over the summer, I kind of had the idea that this Week 18 game versus the Commanders might be meaningless. Whenever the NFL tries to stack these divisional games towards the end of the season, it rarely works out that it comes down to the playoff clinching scenario that they really want to see. And unfortunately, that is what has played out here. Washington had injuries all over their squad, most notably to starting quarterback Jayden Daniels, second-year quarterback who showed a lot of promise in his rookie year, but has missed time due to injury on several occasions this year and has already been shut down for the season, so we won't see him on Sunday. No surprise there. And I understand that making the schedule, the NFL tries to do their best. It's not easy to work around stadium availabilities, all other manner of things that they have to navigate, but I do prefer it when the divisional games are a little bit more spread out. I've mentioned this before that I really loved that the Eagles faced the Dallas Cowboys in Week 1, a little bit of a throwback to the Pickle Juice game in 2000 when that started off the season with a statement. And this year, despite how back and forth it has felt at times, did start with a big statement win versus a divisional opponent. I really like when they stack them like that in the beginning and then mix them in throughout the year. We saw the Cowboys middle of the season. Don't really want to talk too much about the result of that game, but it did look like this year the Eagles had a pretty good balance of schedule with these 2 Washington games at the end of the season notwithstanding. And I really prefer that because as much as I'm happy that they're in a position where they can rest the starters and kind of treat this like a bye week going into the playoffs, even though they're not going to get the number 1 seed again, I do like when games mean something. It's more fun to watch. Now, that being said, the other side of it is I can kind of check out on Sunday, do some other stuff that I've been meaning to get done around the house. The holidays were a productive time. I've been off for quite a while and been able to really catch up on some stuff that work gets in the way of. And, maybe I'll put the game on in the background as opposed to sitting there and watching every single snap to see how it goes. The other side of this, though, is it could be fun to watch guys like Tanner McKee getting a chance to get some more reps. Maybe Tank Bigsby gets his legs going a little bit. The only downside is, of course, you just pray and hope, cross your fingers that nobody important gets hurt. Because obviously you can't have a whole team of backups out there. We're certainly not going to see the big guys like A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. Well, I don't know if they've announced it yet, but maybe they put Smith in there to try to get him his 1,000 yards. I don't think that they're going to do it, but maybe they do. We'll see. Maybe he plays a couple of series just to try to get it. But at any rate, you can't have a whole team of backups out there, so some starters are going to have to play. And we just cross our fingers, hope that nobody gets hurt. So yes, as I mentioned, the Eagles are 11-5. They clinched at least the 3rd seed, but could move up further if it breaks the right way. The Bears and the Lions play at the same time on Sunday. If the Bears lose and the Eagles win, which is somewhat likely, even with the backups mostly playing against a very weak Commanders team, the Eagles could clinch the number 2 seed, which would be great because that guarantees you at least 2 home games. And playing at home, as we've seen, is very advantageous for the Eagles and just about every team in this league. But there are concerns that still exist for me and for a lot of you out there, I'm sure as well, with this team, even though they have won 11 games and are, by and large, still a very good team. A talented team capable of beating anybody on any day. Last week against the Bills, it was a tough win over a tough team. I'm glad they got it, of course, but I want to give some credit to the Bills for this one, shooting themselves in the foot a little bit. Some unforced errors happened there on 4th and goal play. They went for it. They could have taken the 3 points, and that would have put them on the board earlier. Josh Allen trying to play hero ball is you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And we saw that in this game on another 3rd down. Bills were in field goal range. Josh Allen takes a 17-yard loss on a sack, which knocked them out of field goal range. This is a play that you don't see Jalen Hurts making very often anymore. He would, as soon as he realized the play wasn't there, team's still in field goal range, throw it out of bounds. You don't see those uncharacteristic huge losses from Jalen Hurts anymore. He has been much better, especially after his rookie season, of not trying to do too much by himself. But Josh Allen took him out of field goal range. The Bills had to punt. They did end up going down the field on their next drive, scoring a touchdown, but then the extra point was blocked, which is a great play by Jalen Carter, but your kicker's got to be better in that situation. So these are 3 unforced errors, in my opinion. And then finally, at the end of the game, they have a chance to tie the game. If that missed PAT completely changed the complexion of the game, they wouldn't have had to go for it on the 2-point conversion. The Eagles' defense was clearly gassed. I would have kicked the the PAT, gone to overtime, and let your offense do it, because as you could see on the other side of the ball, the Eagles' offense was absolutely putrid in the second half. The Jekyll and Hyde nature of this team showed itself again. Jalen Hurts was overall 13 to 27, I think, from what I counted, and had 110 yards, one touchdown overall for the game, but he was 0 of 7 passing in the second half. A couple of drops in there, I understand, but this absolutely predictable, conservative, putrid is the other word that word I keep coming back to. Play calling reared its head again. They didn't dream up any kind of designed quarterback draws, which we've seen jumpstart this offense. I don't love that I don't want them to go back to leaning on that as a go-to play, but at least once in a while, throw one in there. Maybe try to run Tank Bigsby a little more. Do something creative, but they didn't. If I were the Bills, I would have put the trust in my offense to beat the defense that was gassed and the defense that they had playing against this Eagles offense to do its job and get that win. The defense for the Eagles held up as best they could. James Cook was the league's leading rusher heading into that game. He was largely ineffective, and most of the Bills' offensive yards gained were on some fluky plays. Josh Allen was, again, playing the hero ball, and he did make some amazing throws, and his receivers made some amazing catches, but that really was the bulk of their offensive productivity. So, long story short, the Eagles played good enough to win, but do I think this is sustainable and likely for them to go on a long run? Not very likely. Of course you can win games like this. I just don't think that it's a great recipe for sustained success. I saw a lot of people online and some of my friends texted me saying that the Eagles could have had more points, if not for some questionable officiating, let's call it that. A.J. Brown looked like he was clearly interfered with on a deep ball down the field. Look, guys, you cannot blame the refs for wins and losses. The Eagles won in spite of that missed call this week, to flip it around to the other side. Good teams, and the Eagles are a good team, I'll remind you of that, they find ways to win. And that's the reason for optimism, because last year, if you guys recall, heading into the playoffs, we were concerned about the offense. Certainly not this concern, but we were worried. And all of a sudden, it seemed like the switch just flipped. The defense, of course, stepped up in a major way and carried this team on a run that was really unprecedented, a record-breaking run on multiple fronts. So, that's the reason for optimism right there, is that this team does have the talent to win. They can win games, and at the end of the day, they don't ask how, they ask how many. So we'll see what happens. I will check in with you guys later this week with a full playoff preview depending on the results of Sunday's games, and I guess Saturday's games too. Not really going to affect the Eagles too much. It could decide who comes to the link, but we also will determine that by who wins in the Eagles and the Bears and Lions game. I also wanted to mention this tangential thing because people have been very upset with the Eagles. We talked about Kevin Patullo getting his house egged earlier this year. This week on Reddit, I saw a post about Steelers fans protesting outside of Mike Tomlin's house. This is not meant to throw shade at Steelers fans. This is just meant to mention to you guys, Philly sports fans get a bad rap. There are assholes everywhere, and the unfortunate thing is that they are still out there. I hate to see stuff like this. We don't need to be harassing coaches and ruining property over a sports event. It is a game. It's supposed to be fun. I just want to mention these things because if I continue to put this out there, hopefully the message will get to somebody or enough people that we can change this destructive culture. You're supposed to have fun watching sports, guys. Win or lose, it really is insignificant in the day-to-day operations of our life. And that is all I have on the Eagles. I'll finish up with a couple of quick hits on the rest of the Philly sports universe. The Sixers and the Flyers are kind of in similar situations right now as far as record and where they sit in the standings. The Sixers are 18-14, currently sitting 5th in the East, so in a playoff spot as we flip the calendar to 26. It's been a little bit of everything in the last couple of weeks. They might have had their worst loss of the season versus a very bad Brooklyn Nets team, and then they They had a 3-game losing streak in there, I'm sorry. And then they come back with nice wins versus the NBA Cup champion, LOL, Knicks. Nice comeback versus the Memphis Grizzlies to close out 2025, and started 2026 off with a nice win against the Dallas Mavericks, the hapless Dallas Mavericks. This is a fun stat, though. I just want to mention this. The Sixers are 1-4 with Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey in the lineup. So the big three, not exactly raking in the wins there. And I believe they still have a losing record when Joel Embiid plays. Not a great thing, but at this stage of his career, we kind of know what to expect. He's very up and down, back and forth. I feel like he's kind of slowing down to the point where he's a defensive liability. And we've kind of seen that play out a little bit. But nonetheless, the team overall still has a winning record, and we're in this weird middle, kind of like dueling timelines here. Do we move on and rebuild into the next phase without Embiid and Paul George, which they're not going to get rid of those contracts this year, but maybe into next year, and build around Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe? Will the Sixers be buyers at the deadline? We'll be looking at that over the next few weeks, or will they be just dumping more salary to try to duck the luxury tax? I will keep my eyes peeled on that, as I'm sure you will as well. As mentioned, the Flyers are currently in a similar spot. They are third in the Metro Division, which is a very tightly contested division. Seems like you could go from first place to out of the playoffs within a matter of days, depending on your results. Wanted to mention that they had 3 players named to Olympic teams, which is big news for hockey coming up in the next few weeks in February when the Olympics kick off. Rodrigo Alves was named to the Latvia team, Rasmus Ristolainen to Team Finland, and the biggest one, Travis Sanheim, named to Team Canada. So that's a high honor because Canada, of course, is one of the hockey hotbeds, the United States being the other biggest producer of hockey talent in the world, and to be named to as one of the top 8 defenders on the Canadian team, that is big news for Travis Sanheim. So congratulations to those guys. Currently on the Disney on Ice trip, the Flyers are 2-2. Little bit of up and down from that as well. Looked like the Flyers had strong efforts versus Seattle, did not come away with a win, but then followed it up with another strong effort against the Canucks and did get a win, and had a bit of a clunker against the Calgary Flames to close out 2025. Both teams, by the way, the Sixers and the Flyers, are in action later today. I'm recording this on Saturday morning, so we'll see them back in action today. It's been nice to see some of the emergence of depth guys like Carl Grundstrom, who I believe had 7 goals in 13 games since coming up with the Philadelphia Flyers, from being called up from Lehigh Valley about a month ago. And they also made a minor move, trading defenseman Igor Zamula to the Pittsburgh Penguins for forward Philip Tomasino to get rid of some kind of dead weight. Igor Zamula was kind of like an 8th, maybe even a 9th defenseman, going back and forth between Lehigh Valley. Never really solidified his spot in the lineup here as a lot of people had hoped. So, fresh start for him. I don't know much, if anything, about Philip Tomasino, but a little bit of forward depth never hurts anybody. And that also begs the question, will the Flyers be buyers at the trade deadline coming up? I don't think that they're going to break the bank, but I do think that if this team continues to be in a playoff spot, you might see some more minor moves around the fringes. Danny Briere going to try to bolster this team, get this team at least into the playoffs and play a first-round series, and get these young kids some playoff experience. And I'm absolutely here for it. The Phillies have completely remade the bullpen over the last month or so. They traded Matt Strahm away, and free agent signing Brad Keller from the Cubs will be a nice setup piece to help get to Jahan Duran at the end of games. And last other things that are still kind of hanging out there for the offseason. You still have JT Realmuto to re-sign or figure out another planet catcher. Don't know what that's going to look like. And still waiting to see when, not if, when they move Nick Castellanos out of here. And we will keep our eyes and ears to that to see what happens. Spring training is just a little over a month away. Can you believe it, folks? And finally, to finish up here, just a quick mention, the Philadelphia Union agreed to a transfer of Kai Wagner to Birmingham City FC, so the fire sale of this offseason continues, and of course, we are still nowhere near the start of the season, month and a half to 2 months away, but I have no idea what this roster is going to look like once they take the pitch in the spring, and as I sit here right now on January 3rd, I'm sorry, I'm not too optimistic about it, but Still a little bit of time to go. We'll see what happens. All right, that's all I've got for you on this edition of the Way Outta Here podcast. I'll finish up, as I always do, by outroing the beer of the show. I mentioned at the top, Rising of the Marzen by Rising River Brewing in Macungie, PA. I'm not sure on the pronunciation of Marzen. I always, because there's an umlaut there, I took some German in high school, I always thought it was pronounced Marzen, but some people say Marzen. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong there. But at any rate, this was given to me as a gift by my Aunt Mo. Thank you very much for the birthday gift. Had a can of this the other day. Traditional style Marzen brewed with 100% German hops, malts, and yeast. It was a very nice balanced beer, full-bodied German beer, and I greatly enjoyed it. I also wanted to mention this because I didn't know they existed, this brewery that is, but they're pretty close to where I grew up in the Lehigh Valley, and they were apparently, according to their website, nominated and won the Best of Pennsylvania Craft Beer Destination Brewery and Best Tap Room. So when I'm back in the Valley, I'll try to stop by there, actually, and see what the hype is all about, because I enjoyed this beer, and if the rest of their beers are any other indication, I expect good things from them. So yeah, Rising River Brewing, Rise of the Marzen. They have a bunch of other styles for you to check out as well. If you're in the Lehigh Valley area, take a look at them. That will wrap it up here on the Way Outta Here podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you don't already, you can visit me on the social media platform of your choice on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Way Outta Here Podcast, on Blue Sky, Way Outta Here Pod, on the blog, WayOuttaHerePodcast.blogspot.com, and if you've got any feedback, you can send it to WayOuttaHerePodcast@gmail.com. Available wherever you get your podcasts. On Apple and Spotify, that rating would be awesome, and on Apple, a review would be even more awesome. Thank you so much in advance. I will talk to you guys soon. Until next time, be safe in whatever it is that you do, and go Birds!